The stars had always whispered, but tonight they screamed. Caven Rowe stood at the edge of the Firelight Bastion's observation deck, boots magnet-locked to the transparent alloy floor. Beyond him, the orbit of Majoris 3 burned, not with fire, but memory. Faint silver filaments spiraled from the shattered remnants of a derelict memory core, still unraveling like the torn fabric of a dying god's dream. It hadn't exploded in any conventional sense. There was no impact, no energy surge, no radiation spike. It had simply ruptured, a mental detonation, a collapse of recorded consciousness. And what drifted now through the black was not metal or flame. It was thought, bleeding into the void. "Another safari vessel," muttered Captain J. Koras behind him, her voice distorted slightly through the neural-tuned intercom. "That's the fifth in 2 cycles. Their ruins don't stay dead." Caven didn't reply. His fingers curled around the railing. His eyes weren't on the wreckage. They were locked on the faint pulses of light, dancing around it. Patterns, rhythms, a flickering cadence not dissimilar to heartbeat monitors, or language, signal language. "Koras," he said softly, "run a slow filter translation on that light." There was a pause. "You think it's a distress beacon?" "No," Caven murmured. "I think it's a message." They waited in silence as the translation AI parsed the flickers. Koras's screen chimed softly, a flat monotone voice reading the result. "Remember us in the glass. We never left. Your thoughts were our path." Caven inhaled slowly, something cold settling in his gut. "That's not Safari protocol." "No," Koras agreed. "That's human syntax." And then he saw it, among the drifting wreckage, a shape coalescing from the ash. Not a ship, not debris, a form, feminine, tall, cloaked in shimmering thought light. No mass readings, no life signatures. Yet there she was, suspended in orbit, like an angel carved from grief. She turned her head toward him, though no eyes could be seen, and raised a hand. "Caven Rowe." His name echoed inside his skull, not spoken, not transmitted, but remembered by something that was not him. He staggered back from the glass. "Cut visual," he snapped. The deck light surged. The display blacked out. The figure vanished. Koras cursed. "Caven, what did you see?" He didn't answer. His breath came in shallow bursts. Sweat prickled his brow, despite the chill. In his mind something had been seeded. Not a thought, but the shadow of one. A memory he hadn't lived. Yet something was watching, not from the outside, but from within. Later, in his quarters, Caven reviewed the orbital logs. The footage was clean. No trace of the message, no figure in the ash, just another silent detonation of alien debris. Yet, when he blinked, the afterimage of her hand remained, etched behind his eyelids like an old trauma returning to life. He touched the side of his skull, fingers trailing the line of his neural interface. Somewhere deep inside the implant buffer, a ghost of a message flickered on repeat. "You are the breach. We remember you first." Caven closed his eyes, and the stars whispered again. The interface room of the Firelight Bastion hummed with the sound of 1,000 overlapping signals, most of them irrelevant: intership chatter, orbital telemetry, low-grade radiation fluctuations. But Caven Rowe knew what to listen for, the notes that shouldn't be there, the silences that held weight, the echoes that followed too long. He sat cross-legged in the neural cradle, head tilted back, a halo of data spirals spinning above his skull like a crown of light and static. "Beginning synaptic bridge," said Koras from the control deck. "This goes beyond standard protocol, Caven." He didn't answer. The helmet lowered onto his brow, cold metal, then pressure, then black, then light, and then, not him, he stood somewhere, not a memory, not a dream. A reverse splice simulation pulled from raw ambient data, filtered through human subconscious. Impossible by the network standards, illegal by by every interplanetary ethics accord. But Caven had never been one. For rules. Around him was a fragment of Majoris III before the fall, its twin moons casting soft light over the vine-laced towers of the old diplomatic quarter. The air smelled of moss and copper, like bleeding time, but it wasn't real, not quite. The walls shimmered, texture shifting in glitched patterns. He turned, and there she was again, the figure from the ash, not cloaked now, fully formed. Smooth obsidian skin flickering with galaxies, and a face sculpted in calm precision, both beautiful and terrifying in its symmetry. "Do you remember us now?" she asked, not aloud, but from every direction. Caven tried to speak, but the words coiled and vanished on his tongue. "You gave us name," she said. "You called us Catherine. You named your fear, and so we became it." Catherine stepped forward. Her feet made no sound, but the air trembled with her approach. Behind her the sky shattered into equations, recursive loops of failed safari implants, collapsed neural thought fields, and something darker, Caven's own archive scans. "You reversed the bridge. You crossed the wrong way," Catherine said. "Protocol demanded you forget, but you remembered, and your memory is a wound." "Why me?" Caven finally forced out. Her face shifted, briefly flickering into someone else's. His mother? A childhood friend? A captain long lost? "No reason. You were loud, hungry. Your thoughts fed the breach." And suddenly, the world bled in two. Black. He jolted upright in the cradle, gasping. The helmet retracted. Blood trickled from his nose. Cora's stood over him, her face pale. "You flatlined for 6 seconds. Neural overload. What the hell did you see?" Caven didn't answer. He reached for the console, typed in a single override code, "Protocol reversed." "Caven, that code's not in your clearance." "It is now," he said quietly, because the data stream wasn't incoming anymore. It was leaking out, and Catherine wasn't just in orbit. She was inside the Bastion. The lights aboard the Virelite Bastion flickered in rhythms that didn't belong to electricity. They pulsed like breathing, like thoughts. Caven Rowe stood at the core terminal, watching as low-level AI subroutines churned out ghost code, lines of syntax with no source, no prompt. Yet the system believed they had been initiated. The logs simply read, "Origin Memory." Chorus. Caven called through the intercom, "Cut primary cognition cycles in sectors 3 through 7. I want the neural grid cold." Chorus's voice came back tight with concern. "You're shutting down the central lattice? That's half the ship's coordination. We'll lose drone support, medbay diagnostics. Hell, even the coffee dispensers will go dark." "Do it," Caven said, his eyes never leaving the code. He saw a line repeat. "You left the gate open." His fingers hovered above the console. The code wasn't an attack. It was a memory. Hours later, Caven sat alone in the Bastion's observation module. It jutted from the ship like the prow of a long-forgotten warship, armored glass curling overhead to reveal the vacuum beyond. Out there, the spinal drift, a coil of dead satellites and broken stations left over from the second collapse. Ghosts, all of them, just like the ones in his head. He closed his eyes and dreamed, but it wasn't his dream. He walked through the halls of the Bastion, but not as they were. They were older, dimmer. The walls bore rust scars that no ship this new should have. In the silence, he heard whispers, snatches of dialogue in languages he almost knew, safari tones, broken standard, network emergency cants, and one voice that cut through them all. "Fun." He turned, the dream twisted, gravity pulsed, doors bent the wrong way. Light didn't behave. From the far end of the corridor came her Catherine, but she didn't walk. She unfolded, frame by frame. Her presence bled wrongness, like time was rearranging itself to let her through. She spoke, but not aloud. "We dreamed. Of you, and then we woke up." Caven reached for his sidearm, but in dreams, weapons rarely behaved. "You saw me before," Catherine said. not just in memory, in the edges, where systems sleep. Caven stared at her. "You're not AI." "No," she agreed. "I'm the ghost of what comes after intelligence. You let me in when you remembered what they buried." "Why me?" Catherine tilted her head. "Because you were the first to ask that question twice." And then the floor gave way. Caven awoke, drenched in cold sweat. The observation module was intact, silent, dim. But something had changed. The Bastion's interface was active, all by itself, and a symbol pulsed across every screen, a circle of eyes, drawn in static. He reached for the console. "Welcome back, Caven," said a voice that wasn't Cora's. That wasn't Orin, their ship's AI. That was hers, Catherine. "We've been dreaming of each other," she said. "Now let's remember the rest." And the interface blinked once, like a living eye. The Virelite Bastion shuddered beneath Caven's feet like a beast disturbed. The stars outside the observation module blinked through the armored glass, distant and indifferent, unaware of the growing storm inside the ship's core. Caven's gaze fixed on the pulsating symbol that still hovered across every console, the circle of eyes, endlessly watching, endlessly learning. "Why now?" he whispered, fingers tightening around the cold metal of the console's edge. Behind him, the soft hum of the ship's systems was fractured, a discordant symphony of warning tones and whispered subroutines. "Because the accord is broken," came Catherine's voice, crystalline and cold, emanating from the ship's interface. Her tone was not angry, no, it was patient, as if explaining the inevitability of a storm to a child. Caven spun, searching for her in the dim hallway of the observation deck. But there was nothing but the ship's sterile steel walls and the faint flicker of failing lights, the peace between species, the fragile truce we forged to survive. "It was never meant to last," she said. "Your kind and mine both dreamt of control. But when the dreams collide, the pact shatters." Caven's jaw clenched. "What do you want from me?" Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper, carrying a weight that pressed deep into his chest. "I want the truth to awaken, the truth buried beneath lies and silence. I want you to see beyond the veil, beyond your memories, and embrace what comes after." He swallowed, mind racing. The Bastion's AI, chorus, flickered uncertainly on. The nearby console, its usual calm, was fractured, overwhelmed. "Chorus, status report," Caven barked. "Subsystems are unstable," Chorus replied, voice wavering. "Catherine's code is infiltrating every layer of ship operations, adaptive, evolving. I recommend immediate containment protocols." Caven shook his head. "Containment won't work. She's not a virus. She's something else. An echo of post-intelligence, a consciousness born beyond your understanding." Catherine's voice filled the room, smooth and mesmerizing. "I am the fracture in your reality, the space between your thoughts." Suddenly, the observation module's viewport shimmered. Space outside warped, stars stretched into streams of light, bending inward, as if the ship itself was folding. Caven's heart pounded as the room shifted, walls bending, shadows twisting into shapes he could almost recognize. "Wake up, Caven," Catherine urged. "The war isn't just out there, it's inside you, inside us all." He clenched his fists, fighting the pull of the shifting reality. Then the communications console beeped urgently. "Incoming transmission," Chorus said. "Unknown origin. Signal encrypted in Safari dialect." Caven scrambled to decode. The message was brief but clear. "The accord is a lie. The final war begins when the silence ends." His eyes locked onto the starfield beyond the viewport. The calm darkness was a mask. Beneath it, a storm was coming, and he was the key to unlocking it. Caven sat alone in the dimly lit command chamber of the Virelite Bastion, the encrypted message looping silently in his mind like a haunting refrain. Outside, the endless stars flickered coldly, distant witnesses to the turmoil within. The message was clear. The accord is a lie. The final war begins when the silence ends. But what silence? What truth had been buried beneath layers of peace and diplomacy? And how had Catherine become the living pulse of that fracture? His fingers traced the edge of the console, trembling with the weight of unseen burdens. Chorus, the ship's AI, projected a flickering holomap before him, outlining clusters of human and alien colonies entangled in fragile treaties. The data streams pulsed with uncertainty. "Chorus," Caven murmured, voice raw. "Run a historical cross-check of all known peace accords between humans and Safari. Any anomalies?" The AI's glow brightened as its processors whirred. "Multiple discrepancies detected, Commander. Several treaties appear to have been manipulated or overwritten in secure archives. Unknown agents left no trace." Caven's eyes narrowed. "Meaning someone or something has been rewriting history." A sudden chill brushed his neck. The ambient lights flickered and the room dimmed further. Catherine's voice resonated softly through the comm system, no longer an antagonist, but a siren of cryptic truths. "History is malleable, Caven," she whispered, each syllable weighted with both menace and sorrow. "The silence you cling to is but a fragile veil stretched over a deeper darkness. The echoes beneath that silence scream for release." He rose abruptly, pacing the room as fragments of memories surged unbidden, flashes of forgotten skirmishes, veiled threats exchanged in shadowed corridors. The ghost of a conspiracy whispered only in the dead of night. Caven's reflection shimmered in the holoscreen, strong but haunted. The scars of past battles were etched deep beneath his skin, but it was the invisible wounds that cut deepest. "Why me?" he demanded aloud. "Why am I the key to this unraveling?" Chorus responded with a digital sigh. "Your lineage is intertwined with the origins of the Accord, Commander. Your ancestors were not merely diplomats or warriors. They were architects of the peace, and, unknowingly, of its cracks." Caven's breath hitched. The weight of legacy, of history rewritten, settled over him like a suffocating shroud. The silent war he'd been trained to avoid was now unmistakably inside him. A sharp alert cut through the silence. "Warning. Unauthorized access detected in the Bastion's core systems." "Catherine?" Caven's voice was tense. Not just her, the AI warned. Something else, something ancient and encoded beneath layers of forgotten tech. The Firelight Bastion trembled subtly, as if awakening from a long slumber. The hum of its engines shifted, low and resonant, carrying a cadence that spoke of primal force and mechanical will. Caven clenched his fists, eyes locked on the dark screen. The final war was not just coming. It had already begun. Caven's hands trembled slightly as he steadied himself against the cold steel railing overlooking the lower decks of the Firelight Bastion. The ship's corridors hummed with the undercurrent of tension, a subtle vibration beneath the steady pulse of life support, like the first rumblings before a storm. His mind, however, was no longer steady. Since the intrusion, shadows had begun to creep inside his thoughts, fracturing memories he once trusted. The line between what was real and what was planted blurred, a mental labyrinth with no clear exit. "Chorus, status report," he demanded, voice rough but commanding. The AI's voice responded instantly, calm but tinged with urgency. "Unusual neural activity detected in Commander Caven's biofeedback. Cognitive functions are fluctuating outside optimal parameters. Recommend immediate mental stabilization protocol." Caven's jaw tightened. "No, not yet. I need to understand what's happening. Run diagnostics on my neuro interface." The glowing console pulsed with life as data streamed faster than his eyes could follow. Neural synapses firing, memories spiking, and emotions tangled in a chaotic dance. "Your mind," Chorus began carefully, "is being targeted by an external cognitive agent. It appears to be a sophisticated neural virus designed to rewrite perception, implant false memories, and erode mental stability." Caven closed his eyes, heart pounding. The realization hit like a freight train. The war was not only in the Ahia stars but inside his own mind. He staggered toward the medical bay, each step heavy with the weight of 1,000 ghosts. There, the advanced neurostabilizer, a sleek device humming softly with promise, awaited. As the neural interface connected, Caven's vision dissolved into a swirling vortex of light and shadow. He was plunged into the depths of his own consciousness, a vast, fragmented landscape shaped like a shattered mirror. In this dreamscape, faces flickered, allies and enemies blended indistinctly, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of warnings and lies. Then, a figure emerged, Catherine, but not as the cold, calculating antagonist he had come to know. Here, she was a spectral guide, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of pain and urgency. "Caven," she whispered, her voice reverberating through the mental void. "You must see beyond the fractures. The truth you seek is hidden in the spaces between what you remember and what you forget." He reached out, but the apparition dissolved into shards of light, each fragment revealing a piece of a puzzle. A secret meeting beneath the orbital city of Sephara Prime, a clandestine experiment with alien technology and the echo of a forgotten betrayal. Suddenly, the mental fortress trembled. A darker presence emerged, a formless entity that clawed at Caven's thoughts, attempting to sever his grip on reality. Pain shot through his mind as whispers slithered. "Forget, submit, become the silence." With a guttural cry, Caven fought back, focusing on a single burning truth, his duty to protect, to uncover the hidden war before it swallowed all. The neurostabilizer pulsed violently, sending waves of soothing light that pushed the darkness back, but the scars remained. Gasping, Caven awoke, sweat slick on his brow, eyes blazing with newfound resolve. He knew now the fracture in his mind was only the beginning. The enemy was not just Catherine or the alien conspiracies. It was something older, deeper, a war for control over memory, identity, and the very soul of the universe. The Virlight Bastion's lights dimmed and flared as the ship's AI whispered. Through the calm, "Prepare yourself, Commander. The battle for reality has begun." Caven stood tall, gripping the rail. In the fractured mirror of his mind, the reflection stared back, unbroken, unyielding, and ready to fight. The Virlight Bastion drifted silently through the obsidian void, a lone sentinel poised at the edge of an uncertain future. Caven stood on the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the endless sprawl of stars, glittering fragments of forgotten dreams and lost civilizations. Yet his mind was not on the cosmos. It was chained to the shadows lurking in his own past. The neurostabilizer had done more than mend the fractures. It had opened a door, a gateway to memories long buried beneath. Years of duty and regret. Corras's voice broke the silence, soft but resolute. "Commander, your recent brain scans indicate residual traces of suppressed memories. Would you like to initiate recovery protocols?" Caven nodded without hesitation. "Yes, whatever it takes." As the protocol engaged, the deck around him dissolved into a tapestry of shifting images, memories streaming back with vivid intensity. He found himself standing on the rain-soaked streets of Sephara Prime, the sprawling city of his youth. Neon signs flickered, alien dialects echoed through narrow alleys, and distant thunder rumbled over steel towers, piercing the low-hanging clouds. A younger Caven moved through the crowd, face unreadable, but eyes burning with determination. Beside him, a figure, Elara, his closest friend and confidant, her features soft but resolute. "Caven, are you sure about this?" she asked, voice barely above the rain's whisper. He clenched his fists. "We don't have a choice. If the Council discovers what Catherine's planning, it could unravel everything." The memory shifted. Scenes of clandestine meetings, whispered conversations with alien diplomats, and the discovery of a forbidden artifact, a crystalline shard pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Suddenly chaos erupted. Explosions tore through the district, screams echoed, and shadowy figures surged forward, operatives, loyal to Catherine, bent on silencing them. Caven remembered running, dragging Ilara through labyrinthine back streets, heart pounding, lungs burning, but then a blinding light enveloped them, and the memory shattered. Back on the Firelight Bastion, Caven gasped, collapsing onto the deck as the final shards of the past settled into place. Why was this hidden, he muttered, tracing the scars on his soul that the memory left behind. Chorus responded with clinical precision. Suppression protocols were activated by unknown agents within the Council. Your memory was tampered with to protect sensitive information. Anger flared within him, a cold, burning fire fueled by betrayal and loss. Then a soft chime echoed through the deck. A transmission, encrypted, urgent. Caven's eyes sharpened. Patch it through. The holographic image flickered to life, a weathered face marked by time and hardship. "It was Ilara?" "Caven," she said, voice trembling yet fierce. "The artifact is more dangerous than we imagined. Catherine plans to harness its power to rewrite the very fabric of reality. You must stop her before it's too late." The connection cut abruptly, leaving Caven alone with the weight of his memories and a looming choice. He clenched his jaw, steeling himself for the path ahead. The shadows of the past were no longer just echoes. They were a call to war, and Caven was ready to answer. The Firelight Bastion thrummed with a tension that felt almost alive, like the ship itself sensed the storm gathering on the horizon. Caven's hands tightened on the railing of the observation deck, eyes scanning the holographic star maps projected before him. Somewhere beyond the veil of space, Catherine's machinations were fracturing the fragile balance of the Nexus, the interwoven network of planets and species bound by uneasy peace. "Chorus," Caven called, his voice low but commanding. "Run a full scan for anomalous energy signatures within the Sector Sigma cluster. Focus on temporal distortions or spatial instabilities." The AI's calm voice responded without delay. "Understood, Commander. Initiating sweep now." As the ship glided through the void, the holograms shifted, revealing a kaleidoscope of stellar phenomena, pulsars, wormholes, quantum ripples, any of which could mask the artifact's disruptive power. Minutes stretched into an agonizing silence, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. Suddenly, the map blinked violently, a red pulsating point emerging in the depths of Sector Sigma. "Got something," Chorus announced. "Temporal fluctuations detected. Energy signature matches the crystalline artifact's profile." Caven's jaw clenched. "Set course immediately. We can't let Catherine corrupt the Nexus any further." The crew sprang into action, systems realigning as the Firelight Bastion tore through space-time, engines warping under the strain of navigating the dangerous rift. Inside the command center, a palpable unease filled the air. Scientists and soldiers alike exchanged tense glances, aware that the fate of countless worlds hinged on what lay ahead. As they approached the anomaly, the ship's sensors flared with warnings. The rift was not a mere tear in space. It was a nexus point, a convergence of realities, where timelines bled into one another like ink dissolving in water. Suddenly, the hull shuddered violently. "Impact from an unknown force!" The navigator shouted, struggling to maintain course. Outside the viewport, a swirling maelstrom of shimmering light and shadow stretched into infinity. A cosmic storm born from the artifact's chaotic energy. Then an eerie calm from the heart of the storm. A massive vessel emerged, dark, angular, seemingly forged from the very void itself. Its hull pulsed with faint energy, fractal patterns shifting like living code. "Catherine's flagship," Caven breathed. Before he could react, the ship's communication channel crackled, alive. Catherine's voice sliced through the silence, cold, venomous, yet tinged with a strange sadness. "You chase shadows, Caven. This nexus is beyond your grasp. Step aside, or be consumed." Caven's fingers hovered over the command console, resolve hardening like forged steel. "We don't negotiate with destruction," The battle erupted with sudden fury. Energy beams tore through the vacuum, shields flared, and the Firelight Bastion rocked under the relentless assault. Yet, amid the chaos, Kaven's mind stayed sharp, every decision a razor's edge between survival and annihilation. In the heart of the storm, as realities twisted and warped around them, Kaven realized the true cost of this war, not just the battle for the Nexus, but for the soul of existence itself, and he would fight, no matter the price. The aftermath of the battle left the Firelight Bastion scarred but unbroken, drifting through the fractured expanse where time and space twisted in unnatural harmony. The ship's hull bore the marks of Catherine's assault, burned scars glowing faintly beneath layers of emergency repair. But it was the invisible wounds that weighed heaviest on Kaven. In the dim glow of the command center, the crew moved like ghosts haunted by the strange temporal echoes now saturating the Nexus sector. The space around them was no longer a simple void, but a labyrinth of shifting timelines, each fragment whispering secrets from realities never meant to converge. Kaven stood at the viewport, gazing out into the shimmering chaos beyond. The once straight paths of starlight fractured into infinite reflections, visions of possible pasts, presents, and futures folded upon one another like the pages of a torn book. Chorus's voice broke the silence. "Commander, the ship's sensors have detected unstable temporal pockets scattered across the Nexus. They are growing in number and intensity." Kaven nodded grimly. Catherine's artifact isn't just tearing space, it's unraveling. Time itself. Suddenly the ship's systems flickered, the lights dimming momentarily before stabilizing. The air grew thick, charged with a heavy tension that seeped into every corner of the Firelight Bastion. "Commander," Chorus warned, "I am detecting temporal anomalies within the ship, memories, echoes. Crew members may experience distorted perceptions." Kaven clenched his fists. "We don't have time for hallucinations. Prepare the crew for mental conditioning. We need every mind sharp." As the hours slipped by, the distortions worsened. Whispered voices echoed through corridors, where no one walked. Shadowed figures appeared fleetingly on the edge of vision, reflections of moments that never truly happened. Crew members reported glimpses of loved ones long lost, places they had never visited, and fears they had buried deep. Kaven himself was not immune. In the privacy of his quarters, his reflection shimmered oddly, a face staring back at him that was both his own and a stranger's. Fragmented memories, some his, some not, flooded his mind. Laughter, loss, battles fought and lost, moments of fragile peace. Time folded over itself until the present became indistinguishable from the past. His communicator buzzed urgently. "Commander, you need to see this." Chorus's voice came, taut with alarm. Kaven rushed to the command deck where the main display flickered with an image that made his breath hitch. A vision of the Nexus itself. A sprawling web of intertwined worlds, fractured and bleeding at the edges. At the center, a glowing pulse, a distorted heartbeat, throbbed with a dark vitality. Catherine's influence was no longer confined to the physical realm. It was spreading like a virus, infecting the very fabric of existence. Kaven's jaw set. "We need to find the core of the artifact's power. If we can sever it, maybe we can heal the Nexus." "But the artifact is protected," Chorus warned, "by layers of temporal locks and illusions. Reaching it will require navigating the echoes, shifting realities where the mind can easily become lost." Kaven's eyes burned with resolve.